Hello, well, in this video we're going to compare these two radios, the Tecsun PL 520 and the well-known Tecsun PL 330. After my first PL 520 video, somebody did ask me about the dimensions of the two radios and how they compared. Hopefully you can see here they are pretty much identical in terms of the dimensions. If we put the 520 on top of the 330 here, okay, and you can see the respective thicknesses of the radios. See the side views. Okay, both sides. All right, they're all but identical, aren't they? All right, so in terms of dimensions, there's no difference. Interestingly, the weight of both of these radios is identical. I put them on my kitchen scales the other night and weighed them, and you'll see the results now. Okay, they're both lightweight and they're both exactly the same weight. What are the differences then? Cosmetically, the corners of the case on the 520 here are rounded. Okay, I'll probably see there in comparison to the 330, which is squarer edged, kind of sharper corners. Okay, it's quite subtle, but there is a difference. It's a more subtle sort of rounding on the case of the 520. The buttons along the top here, time, alarm, display, they're round on the 520. Got the same buttons really on the 330, but they're rectangular. Time, alarm, display. Power button, we've got like a white stripe on the 330, nothing there on the 520. Step and ETM buttons, they're both the same. And we did make the note earlier in the first video that we've got this favorites button here, where the AM bandwidth button is on the 330. Okay, so for sideband, you'll see on the 520, you step between LSB and USB on that one key here, whereas we've got separate keys on the 330 for lower and upper sideband, and the sync key being the same. A very observant viewer on my 520 video said the knobs on the 520 are thicker, and you can see here in the comparison they are. And I've actually taken one of these off on each radio, and there's the picture. You can see that they're a deeper, thicker knob on the PL 520. So it makes it probably slightly easier to tune. Doesn't make a great deal of difference. And the most obvious thing, I suppose, is the USB-C charging port of the 520 as against the micro USB of the 330. I did have a commenter tell me that newer models of the 330 have a USB-C. I've looked on AliExpress. All the 330s I could find were advertised as having the micro USB. Now, it may be that there's a USB-C version of this out there. I haven't seen it. Whether it's worth buying the 520 for the USB-C alone, well, it's doubtful. It's no great hardship to find out a USB micro charger, is it? The similarities are obvious. Okay, not just the dimensions, but the screen here. It really looks like the same LCD panel we've got in both radios. The major layout of the keypads is again the same. We talked about hidden menus, and possibly the most popular used one is the switching of the external antenna port to take an antenna for medium and long wave. It's normally disabled for those bands. That is achieved on both radios just in the same way. So you power the radio on. This one's already switched to the external antenna position. The 330 here, you can see it's got both an LW, show it's in the long wave band, but the SW is illuminated as well to show that the external port is enabled. To disable that, we just do a long press of the number 3 key, and now you can see it just says LW. We'll do exactly the same with a 520. We'll turn it on. Again, this has got the antenna port enabled on long wave, LW, SW displayed there. A long press of the 3 key, and there we go. So the firmware, to all intents and purposes, looks to be the same in both radios. By pressing, I think it's the number 9 key while the radio is off, we get a display of the firmware that's installed in these radios. I've done this for both models. You'll see I've taken a picture of the result, and for the 520, the first 2 digits of the firmware version are 52, and for the 330, the first 2 digits are 33. I suppose it makes sense. Is there a slightly different version of firmware on this? It's not. If there is, it's not noticeable. The radio performs pretty much identically to the 330, to the extent that you'll recall that, and you'll know this if you own a 330 and you've tried this. If you connect an external antenna to the 330 on long wave by enabling, as I showed you with the number 3 key, by enabling the external antenna port, you tend to get a lot of breakthrough, a lot of spurious signals and so on long wave. The radio just overloads. I'll show you now a quick clip of both the 330 and the 520 with an external antenna on long wave. I tuned them to 180 kilohertz, which is a clear frequency. Shouldn't be anything on there. You'll see they've both got the same breakthrough. I think it's coming from a medium wave station talk radio on 1089 kilohertz.
Jacobs on your side this afternoon from 1 on Talk Sport with 2. Sweet bananas. If I was to play incredible,
but they both suffer with exactly the same breakthrough. I think the receivers are identical in both radios. I'm going to show you one more clip regarding long wave performance on both of the radios. So what I did, I switched them to back to their internal ferrite antennas. I tuned to radio 4 long wave, which here in South Wales in the UK is a good signal in daytime. You will see the kind of signal they're picking up. They did pick up radio 4 okay, wasn't particularly strong. And for comparison's sake, I've showed them against my Qdossin DX286, which is very good on long wave. And you'll see in this clip, just looking at the S-meter readings, the Qdossin is getting a far, far stronger signal. But the important thing is the 330 and the 520 are pretty much getting an identical strength signal. So again, I think the receiving performance is identical, certainly on long wave.
What would have happened if the constituency had existed in 2019? And this is a community to which the Greens have been demonstrated an ability to appeal in the past, including in the general election.
Now, just by looking at the sticker on the front of these radios, you can see we've got 850 memories, 850 memory capability on the 330, and identically 850 memory capability on the 520. So no difference there. I was asked to look at sync detection. It's not something I've used on my 330. I think Sony does the best synchronous detection. The 2001D I had worked very well, and I think it's a 7600 GR I've still got. Sync works okay on that, and it works well on my SDR receivers as well. Never really bothered with it on the 330. What I'm going to do quickly, and then we'll try it on shortwave, but let's go into AM. And let's pick a torque station. We're on the 330, as you can see. Just tune down. Torque radio. I'm getting a bit of interference off the lights I'm using to help film this, but I'll just press the sync button. Takes a while to switch in. We can switch between the upper side and lower side bands. Bit more interference from the lighting actually on the lower. Check the bandwidth we're using. Okay, so that's the 330. Go back to normal AM. When we're in normal AM, we've got that extra bandwidth of 9. Okay, which we haven't got in sync mode. So AM, medium wave, we've got 9, 3.5, 2.5. We've got those 3 filters. So I'll just turn that off. Let's go to the 520. Same thing again, we turn it on. I think the tuning feels a little bit better with these thicker tuning knob, but yeah, quite like that, I gotta say. Right, 1089. So there it is. The bandwidths on this, we've got 9, 5, which we didn't have a 5 on the 330. Is that it? 3.5, 2.3, 2.3, 3.5, 5 and 9. So we've got a little bit better choice of bandwidths on medium wave on this. Let's switch in the sync. Can I up the bandwidth there? No, still stuck in the full maximum of 4 in sync, so that's the same as a 330. Let's flip to upper side band. Back to AM. Put the mic a bit closer to this. I think you can hear the interference from the lighting coming in here, but okay, what the radio does display in common with a 330, and I think it's the AGC action, and it, you know, maybe part of the DSP and the radio, but you've got this sort of almost increase and decrease in sensitivity. Almost sounds like a an antenna connection isn't quite making it, if you know what I mean. That is something that's very distinctive in the 330, whether you're using an internal or an external antenna, and it's there in the 520. The receive appears to be identical. There is the additional bandwidth on AM that we saw, the 5 kilohertz, which let's just check the 330 again in AM mode, and on the AM band, on the medium wave band, because the filters are different on shortwave. So bandwidth, we've got 9, we've got 3.5, 2.5. Okay, so we've got those 3. We've got a 5 kilohertz on the 520. So we have got an additional filter there. Okay, let's have a look at shortwave on the 520. Okay, so 17690. Got something there on the external dipole. Let's try the sync on shortwave. It's not bad, is it? Because that's quite a good signal to try sync on. There's a lot of fade in there.
are living amid widespread destruction. Yes, your team has lost the sea. Thousands have applied for permission to travel, but it remains
Let's go back to normal AM.
either direction. Sources say that
I think the sync is quite useful here. Let's just go through that again. Lower sideband, upper sideband, back to AM. Right, let's do the same thing with the 330. So, same frequency, Tecsun PL 330, very similar on receive. Let's switch in the sync. So that's upper sideband. Lower sideband. Back to standard AM. And while we're here on this one, let's look at our bandwidth filters. 2.5. We go any lower now, 3.5. 5. And that's it. So we've got 5, 3.5 and 2.5. Alright, I'm just gonna check the 520 in the same way. We don't need the antenna for this, but turn this on. Let's get that volume down. What bandwidths have we got? We've got 6, 5, 3.5, 2.3. Yep, so that's quite different on the bandwidths. We have got additional bandwidths on the 520 on AM, on the shortwave band, but we've got a maximum of 6, whereas we had 9 on medium wave, but we've got 6. Let's try that again. 6, 5, 3.5 and 2.3. Similarly, if we switch to sideband, bandwidth filters, we've got 4, 3, 2.2, 1.2, 0.5. 0.5 is only going to be useful for CW. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 selections on sideband on the 520. And what have we got on the 330? Let's just turn that on. Turn the volume down. And we go to lower sideband, for example. And bandwidth, we've got 4, 3, 2.2, 1.2. Pretty much the same then. Pretty much the same on SSB. So I think overall these are basically the same radio. Some very minor differences in software. An additional filter in AM mode. How useful that will be, I don't know. I'm still in the process of trying to trace a manual for this. I think I'm going to have to scan my Chinese manual in and see if AI will do it. I know somebody did say that they'd scanned their Chinese manual in and got AI to translate it. So I might try that. But then again, I don't think the functions are going to be markedly different from the 330 in any way. Favorites button, well, it's a bit of a mystery, but you know, I see that switched me to FM for some reason by pressing that, but we'll come to that. Hopefully that was a useful demonstration of the similarities and the differences of these two radios. Okay, now there may be things that you wish I'd covered in this video that I haven't covered. We did have a little tune around on SSB on this one. It's almost identical to the experience of tuning SSB on the 330. We did that in the first video. If you want a bit more on that, I can do that. But there's not a great deal more to say about these radios. Probably if you can get a Tecsun 330 with a USB-C, the only thing you're going to miss out on is the little kickstand that's on the 520. It's a matter of preference whether you prefer the styling. There's not a great deal of difference. It's slightly more rounded and obviously a different colour, a lighter colour. The display, the clarity of the display is exactly the same. This isn't a criticism of the 520, by the way. The 520 hasn't been advertised as an upgrade. Hasn't been really advertised as anything. I just spotted it on AliExpress. It just says 2026 model. It's not claiming to be any better than this one. It's certainly styled slightly differently, but beyond that I don't think there's much difference. So I wouldn't pay a great deal extra for this. If you've got one of these, you've got a good basic shortwave radio. If you've got one of these, you've got a good basic shortwave radio. That's got the USB-C. I'm told you can get this with the USB-C. I haven't seen them. Okay, but this is not a significant upgrade. It's basically the same radio as the PL 330. It doesn't have RDS on FM, which is a black mark from me because as a travel radio, if I'm on holiday, if I'm in a different part of the country or a different part of the world, I want that RDS on FM so I can identify the local FM stations. So this wouldn't be my choice of travel companion. That would be the D808 Shewardon or XH Data, or the Kudosin DX286. As regards Longwave, it's usable, but it's deaf on the internal ferrite rod. Be prepared for some overload with an external antenna. Medium wave is okay, comparable to the D808, I would say. Medium wave sensitivity, and neither of these radios is too bad with an external antenna. Seems to cope okay on medium wave and on short wave. So there it is. That is the 520 compared to its older brother, the PL 330. I think they're the same radio inside, basically. I did read this has got a slightly larger speaker. I can't detect much difference personally. Maybe you could, but I can't. If you want to know any more about these two, let me know. We might get another video out of it, but there's not a great deal to say about the 520 beyond it is a slightly different styled PL 330. Thank you for watching.